Hello from the studio.
Today we'll be painting the simple study of driftwood on a beach. And as we go, I'll share lots of useful time and energy saving tips, so look out for the blue banners on screen too. To save ourselves some time and energy, we're going to pre-mix our colors. And we've got a lovely easy palette today, just 3 colors, white, phthalo blue and raw umber. So I'll start by mixing some white with a phthalo blue for the sky color. And that can be a little bit bright, so I could add a little bit of raw umber to that blue just to desaturate it if it's too bright. And then we can take some of our raw umber, add some of that phthalo blue to get a really dark blue. That might be good for the horizon. And then we can take some of that raw umber, mix in some white. That might be a good color for the sand, or even for some of the shadows we could just see as we go along. And then we can take a little bit of that mixture that we've made, add some white to it, and that might be good for some of the highlights. These are just a few colors to start with. We can always add to them as we go along. So we're going to start with this quick sketch, and I'm using some toned paper today, but you can paint on any surface that you like. I'm just using some diluted raw umber to make a rough sketch. So I've marked out where the horizon will be, and I'm just going to mark out where our driftwood would lie on the beach. Your driftwood could be any shape really. I'm just sort of making it up as I go along. I'm not following a photo for this demonstration. We're just doing it out of our imagination, so it can look any shape that we like. Just put a few lines down just to give us some direction later on. Now that our sketch is done, we can start blocking in our main colors. So we'll do it nice quick brush strokes. We're not being too particular because this is just a sketch. We don't have to cover up every little bit of our background. So I'm just going to apply the sky, put a little bit of a darker blue along the horizon, and then block in some of the sand. I'm just going to take an old watercolor brush, but you could use a makeup brush or any soft brush, and I'm just going to gently blend those colors that we've laid down. Blending will smooth out any of our brush strokes, and it'll also remove a tiny amount of paint, which will help us later on if we want to layer more paint over the top of those colors. So we can take some of our raw umber now and paint in our driftwood, and then we can blend that out as well. Now, our driftwood's looking a bit flat, so we're going to add some form and make it look more 3D. And we do that by adding a little shadow on the underside of the driftwood. So take some of your darker umber and blue mix and use that to put a shadow at the bottom. Once we've painted the underside of our driftwood, we can take some white paint and add the little bit of water in. We can also take some of our raw umber mixed with white, and we can make an indication underneath the water to make it look like the sand is wet, and then we can start painting in the shadow of the driftwood onto the sand. And when we paint the shadows on the sand, we need to make sure that the shadow actually touches the driftwood in certain places. It doesn't have to touch it the whole way, especially if it's a wiggly shape like this driftwood, but we need to make sure that the parts that are touching the sand actually have to have the shadow touching them too. Now I'm going to go back in and strengthen that shadow underneath the driftwood. It doesn't look dark enough. So I'll take a darker brown and I'll just go in and darken that shadow. Your shadow might look fine. You just need to assess that for yourself. Now we can take some of our white mixed with raw umber, the very light mix, and add the lighter parts onto the driftwood too. Now to add to the realism, wherever the driftwood is actually touching the sand, the shadow in that area will be darker, and then it will slowly fade out as it goes away from the wood. So go back to where your wood is touching, and then strengthen those shadows, and then blend them out into the lighter shadows. Now it's time to add just a few finishing touches. I'm not too happy with the shape of my driftwood, so I've got a minute or two left. So I'm just going to go in with some of my sand color and just fix up the shape here and there. have a look. I'll step back from the painting a little bit and see what needs to be done. I can put some darker sand in the front maybe to show that it's wet in some areas. And then I'm thinking I could strengthen the water near the horizon. So I'll just take some white and add the water in along the top of the horizon. Just fiddling around here, adding little finishing touches. It's not absolutely necessary, but we've got some time, so we may as well do what we can. They are much happier with that shape now. And now I'm thinking I might put some little birds off in the horizon. That will help us to give the illusion of distance as well. So I'm just going to take some diluted raw umber and just make a few little tick-shaped birds flying off in the distance. And from a compositional perspective, it's always good to put an odd number of birds in. And here's our finished 10-minute painting of driftwood on the beach. Just beautiful. Thank you so much for watching and for following along and for subscribing. If you're feeling inspired, you might want to try these tutorials too. And I'll see you in the next video.